Welcome back to the squeaky game table, y'all. Yep, still squeaky. Okay, great. What we're going to do today is take a look at Rune Wars. Now, this is going to be more of a review and thoughts than like an unboxing. Now, why Rune Wars now? I will say this in short because it's cheap. I watched a video by a guy named Krabick, and he said that this game was put on like life support. I forget exactly what he said, but I guess Fantasy Flight Games is not going to do their supported tourneys for this anymore, and so that means the game is done, like has hit shelf life, something. And so the core box I picked up for $44. Now this is my second core box, so I'm going to say from a review standpoint, if you had asked me 2 years ago, just is this worth the $100? No, because it's half a game. If you're going to spend that $100 now, I would say yeah, because you can get 2 core boxes and have the full game. I'm sure if anybody's looked into the game before, those are probably comments you've heard. And in fact, when I play, get a lot of Fantasy Flight games, it feels like that for all of them. It feels like you get half of a game. For this game, for instance, you get approximately 100 points per side, and a full game is about 200 points. So again, that's half. What is recommended, I've heard people say, is that you get your 2 starters. One friend will take the undead folk, and then one friend will take all of the human folks, and then boom, you're playing a game. Now, as far as components, since we're talking about that, I still think they look great. I still think the miniatures are really cool. They're super detailed and easy to put together. I will say this though, the one thing I think Fantasy Flight Games does really good in the miniatures department is, one, I think they're detailed pretty good. As my son points out, they're not Games Workshop quality, but I would say they're a strong second place when compared to what you get from Age of Sigmar and Warhammer and things like that. These are great for what they are. Now, the other thing they do really good, I think they do better than Games Workshop, is for this game particularly, each unit kind of comes in its own individual packet. Like, so for instance, this worm guy came in its own bag, and it had like the arms, the body, and the centipede thing was in 3 pieces. Or yeah, a head and 2 body segments. And it came in one little pack. And they're already off of a sprue. You don't have to clean them. They look pretty good. Like this, after I put it together, is ready to prime and paint and play. Let's say you got some of the archers. Very similar. Let's say you get 4 archers with this pose, for example. Well, the beautiful thing is, those 4 archers come in one plastic baggie. You dump them out and you put them together, and they're like maybe 3 pieces. Actually like 2, because the body legs are all good and you're just putting on the arms. So easy to assemble. They have some assembly instructions, not even needed. The boss, well, the human boss and the undead boss, main warrior, they came in the same plastic baggie, but it was easy to tell what went where. And if you just kind of dry fit, get an idea how the pieces go, put them together, it's great. So you got good miniatures. If nothing else, the money you pay just for the miniatures is worth it. You could use these components with any fantasy war game that you want, and they're going to fit in just fine and look great. So the price to get a whole bunch of minis, I think, is worth the $44 versus the $100 I paid for before. Even these Calvary, from the Human Calvary, same thing. Great detail on the horses, and it was just simply the horse was a piece, the body was a piece, and the head and cape was a piece. So like 3 parts, and boom, you've got Calvary put together. Spearmen, I would say the only real challenge is going to be my Spearmen, because they have a lot of bent spears. So I have to do a lot of hot water to kind of make these malleable, the soft plastic, and then dip it in cold water to set it in the new positioning. But otherwise, they went together pretty good, and they have a couple big pieces. So I'm going to say, just off of miniatures, for the price, fantastic. You also get, this is, like I was saying, half the dice you need. A lot of rolls, when I was playing, it felt like I needed 3 dice, so I'd have to roll 2 dice, like if I was rolling 2, needed 3 reds or 3 whites. And that always hits with Fantasy Flight games. But now, with the set I bought like 2 years ago and this set, I think I have plenty of dice to play now. So the dice are fine. And I think maybe that's the problem when you have a game that requires custom dice, is you gotta have the dice. So I'm glad I got these now. I don't think there's an app for the game. So if I lose these dice and the game is totally out of print, I might be in trouble. So I may just buy, if I can find it, just a set of dice to have them. But the box comes with 2 of each color. So now I've got 4 of each color. That should be enough. I now have 2 sets of measuring sticks. And the measuring sticks are fine. I was watching some Fantasy Flight gameplay footage, like tournaments, and people were using, I guess you maybe go to like litco.com or whatever and get some acrylic measuring sticks, but they work fine. And they work fine with measuring too. That's one thing I do like about the game here. It comes with bases to support everything. I really like the fact that the game uses these movement trays. They lock together and your people just pop right in and you're good to go. As you take casualties, you take from the back row first to move your way forward, but figures just kind of pop on and the figures pop off as you kill them off. And then let's say I did kill everything on this tray. You just got to hold this down and very carefully, without moving much, just take the tray off. And the trays matter. That's part of the mathematics. So the wider your unit, the more damage it does. The deeper the unit, you get more re-rolls. So now that you've got 2 starter sets, you can now play with formations. So do I have like 2 basic unit formations, or do I make a bigger formation that's kind of a juggernaut? So 2 core sets, I think, is a good way to go. Another good thing, well, this is the part that I think is kind of where people have the most problem, is the dials for each unit. You have to decide what action to do, and then you can modify the action, and you match colors. So if I'm doing a green arrow attack, I could give myself a +1 defense, and then this little number tells you when in the activation cycle you activate. And you just lay that next to your unit, and then as you go through the cycle, you activate the order. I think it's fine if you play a game where you pre-plot, which you do here. It makes you think about what you're going to do. Do I do a strong attack, which delays when I go, or do I weak attack and go sooner? I think that's fine. Do they clutter up the table a little bit? Yeah, they kind of do. But you could play with these off the table on the unit card, because when you set up your table, it's a 6x3 table. So 6 inches of that is going to be dedicated to holding all your units. Kind of like if you play Armada or Legion or something like that. You can just keep these off so you're not cluttering the play area. And there's a few tokens to mark, hits and damage. So just like a lot of Fantasy Flight games, at some point it starts to feel like component overload. Now when you compare that to some other games, there's virtually nothing that you have to put on the table to track information. At least it feels that way. So that's good, bad, kind of depends on you. I'm getting used to having things on the table, so I'm used to just easily looking and determining who's got how much damage, or if they've got boons, banes, things like that. Damage for units then can cause you to draw these little cards for like morale losses, and they can range from betrayal, doubt. If the unit has more than 1 trait, it immediately performs a attack targeting itself. Well, that's pretty bad. So combat is just a matter of rolling dice. You have on your combat unit, which I don't have out. I was trying to keep this review short because I don't want to bore y'all. I just want to kind of show you what comes in here and give you my thoughts on it. But just real quickly, your unit is going to tell you, based on the type of action you give it as far as an attack, how much dice you roll, and then you'll compare that with how well you roll versus the unit has like their defense. So it takes 3 hits to do a point of damage, and it's got 4 points of damage. And then, like I said, damage will be determined by how many bases you have. That's kind of like the threat. So if you have as your unit shrinks, it potentially does less damage. So the combat and movement and things of that nature aren't terribly complicated, so it's a pretty quick playing game. It still feels like it takes forever to play, but It's not overly complicated. It does come with a few cardboard cutouts, which I know some people will want to play with full terrain, but the nice thing about the cardboard cutouts is your units can go on, and it's easy to maneuver them around the field because you can put your trays on there and then boom, you know that they're protected. So, you know, your mileage may vary if you like the cardboard or not. If you're doing a skirmish like Legion and these guys were all individually mounted, then yeah, having the actual terrain is cool, put the people in, just adds to the immersion. So depending on how you play, cardboard might work for you or not. That's really about all there is to the game. As you're creating your army, you're going to get some cards here which will modify them. So you might get, let's see, Terrifying Heraldry. At the start of the end phase, each unit engaged with you receives a panic token. So you can modify your troops. And that's important because, again, this is why having 2 core sets is needed. And we'll try to maybe end with that thought. If you look on the back of a unit, it's going to tell you how many bases it takes to create a particular formation. So with the base game, you get 1 Carrion Lancer, and that means you can modify it with that symbol of card type there. But if I have 2 Carrion Lancers, which you would get if you bought 2 starter sets, well, you're still limited to that 1. But let's say you bought 2 base sets and you really like the Carrion Lancer and you buy the Carrion Lancer expansion, which comes with 2, you can now make this 2 wide, 2 deep group, and you can apply these 2 benefits to it. Let's say more realistically, you've got Reanimate Infantry. You could have 2 trays wide and you get to play a 1 bugle thing. Or you go 2 trays wide, 2 trays deep, you can now play a bugle and whatever symbol that is. And as you add to your army and you create these bigger formations, you can then modify them with even more benefits. So that's why having 2 core sets is good, because now do I play with a bigger unit or do I play with 2 smaller units? So you get some variation there. But really, those are just some of my thoughts on the game. Is it worth picking up now that it's on kind of a life cycle, well, like life support, if you will? Yeah, it's so cheap. Prices are like 50% or more. You just have to do some searches online and find them. But like I said, I bought a core set for 44. I bought a couple of expansions. One was 22, one was 12, and I found some that were just like the hero units that were like $8. And this would be the time to get in. The actual play you may or may not enjoy, but like I said, if you get enough miniatures, you could then find your own fantasy set of rules that you enjoy and use the figures with that. And just on the cost alone, I think it's worth picking up Rune Wars, if for nothing else, just to get you some figures. But that's the basics there, I think. Yeah, let me know what you think. Did you get the game, or you're not going to get the game? You know, if you do get it, what did you think of it? Anyway, yeah, we'll keep it short. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.